But it's clear now that we didn't do enough to prevent these tools from being used for harm as well. We didn't take a broad enough view of our responsibility, and that was a big mistake. It was my mistake, and I'm sorry.
Mark Zuckerberg very publicly apologized in front of Congress last April. He was called to testify numerous times, along with Facebook Chief Operating Officer Sheryl Sandberg, in order to answer to a number of high-profile scandals and controversies, including accusations that the company failed to properly address election interference and hate speech. But while Facebook was striking a conciliatory tone in public, the company was reportedly involved in an elaborate lobbying effort behind the scenes. That's according to a startling new report from the New York Times. It outlines how the social media giant used unsavory tactics to delay, deny, and deflect criticism. Quote, Facebook employed a Republican opposition research firm to discredit activist protesters, in part by linking them to the liberal financier George Soros. It also tapped its business relationships, lobbying a Jewish civil rights group to cast some criticism of the company as anti-Semitic. Joining me now, one of the New York Times reporters on that byline, Cecilia Kang. Cecilia, thanks so much for being here. This is a stunning report, great work by you and your colleagues at the New York Times. I want to start by focusing on Definer's public affairs. So you write in the piece, in October 2017, Facebook also expanded its work with a Washington-based consultant, Definer's Public Affairs, that had originally been hired to monitor press coverage of the company. And they were founded by veterans of Republican presidential politics. Definer specialized in applying political campaign tactics to corporate public relations. And it seemed noteworthy to me that the main piece of news that we got from Facebook overnight was that they have now parted ways with this company. What strategies were they using that you think people who are on Facebook, who use it every day, would be surprised by?
So this firm, which is known really as an oppo firm, an opposition tactics firm, what they did was they would try to plant stories and create relationships with reporters to look at things like financial ties to the financier George Soros when it came to critical groups that are critical of Facebook. They also tried to get reporters to think about how the problems that Facebook was facing also could be said about other tech rivals, such as Apple or Google. So a lot of their strategy was to deflect and to actually spread some of the blame to other companies, and in many cases to discredit, and most importantly, discredit their critics. And this is not a new sort of strategy in Washington. It's just striking for a company that deploys a motto that is much more benevolent. It's about connecting the world and making the world more open, whereas behind the scenes they were doing some things that were very aggressive tactically.
One thing that really stuck out to me, I mean, this is because I covered it, but there was a sex trafficking bill pushed by Senator Rob Portman, among others, that, frankly, the other tech giants had been opposing, and Facebook got some credit in the press for, flipping their position and saying they were going to support this. You all report that that was just to make Google look bad, not to actually support the bill.
Yeah, we were hearing around that time, it was around November 2017, a lot of whispering from people within Facebook and some of Facebook's third-party public relations firm that Facebook had come to the table to negotiate, that they really were concerned about the issue of sex trafficking, that they weren't stubborn like Google. That was a tip-off early on, that they were trying to break away from the other companies to make themselves look better, as well as to disparage their rivals. And this was at a time when Facebook was really under a lot of pressure about Russian interference on their platform and how that might have influenced the 2016 US election. This is around exactly the time that the general counsels of Facebook, Google, and Twitter were called to the Hill to testify on Russian interference, and that intelligence committees were looking very closely at this issue. So it was a good deflection strategy, and that really caught our eye even in 2017, late 2017, as a flip and a real strategy on their part. That was one of the many reasons why we started to investigate the company and understand what was happening inside the company in Menlo Park with its top leadership and in this Washington office, to understand what was going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, and let's talk quickly about Chuck Schumer, the minority leader, who you point to as somebody who actually tried to defend Facebook behind the scenes, because a lot of this pressure on Facebook has been led from Congress by Mark Warner, and you write, back off. Schumer told Mr. Warner. According to a Facebook employee briefed on Schumer's intervention, Mr. Warner should be looking for ways to work with Facebook. Mr. Schumer advised not to harm it. Facebook lobbyists were kept abreast of Mr. Schumer's efforts to protect the company. I was a little bit surprised by this, but you report that there are some connections between Schumer and the company.
There certainly are. The chief operating officer, Sheryl Sandberg, is very closely connected to the Democratic Party. She was long rumored to be, if Hillary Clinton were to win the presidential election, was long rumored to be named a cabinet member. And Sheryl Sandberg and the company itself donates quite a bit, the company's PAC, to Schumer. And Sheryl Sandberg, as well as other executives, including Elliot Schrage, are known for being very well connected to top Democrats, and particularly a particular sort of part of the Democratic Party that is of New York, that is of the establishment of Democrats. And there is a lot of, even though Sheryl Sandberg lives on the West Coast, there's a lot of interaction between her, as well as her top lieutenants and top members of the Democratic Party. So this was no surprise. Also, it should be noted that that Senator Schumer does have a personal relationship with the company. His daughter works at Facebook.
Yeah, and another very interesting nugget you guys reported was that Mark Zuckerberg was apparently taken aback by the level of opposition from Democrats. That is an interesting. I remember reporting on that at the time and thinking they really did not understand the depths of the problem they were facing. Cecilia Kang, thank you so much for your great reporting.
Thank you.
It's Deadline.